This passage follows Norma and her family as they discover a mysterious box left at their doorstep by a stranger in a black car. Inside the box, they find another, red and buttoned, along with a letter stating that a man named Mr. Stewart will visit them at 5 p.m. Setting the box aside, they continue their daily lives. Norma, a schoolteacher, is later called to the principal's office, where she learns that her salary will be reduced. This unexpected development adds tension to the unfolding mystery. The chapter ends with anticipation for Mr. Stewart's visit, leaving readers wondering about his connection to the enigmatic box. The narrator observes that the school principal is visibly distressed, even suffering a nosebleed, while Norma remains lost in her own concerns. That evening, Mr. Stewart arrives at Norma's home. He has a crooked mouth and introduces himself, confirming that he left the box earlier. He explains that it holds an unusual proposition. Pressing the button will grant Norma $1 million, but in exchange she must. The sentence remains incomplete. A flashback then details a story about a man who applied for a space program. Although he passed all physical and technical tests, he failed the psychological evaluation and was rejected. Disheartened, he returned home. Later, as if fulfilling a prophecy from Mr. Stewart, he pressed a button. At exactly 5 p.m., Mr. Stewart arrived at his house and handed him a briefcase containing $1 million. The man was left in shock, trying to return the money, but Mr. Stewart had already disappeared. The chapter ends abruptly with a mention of a woman being harmed. Another flashback follows, showing a woman named Suma calling her husband to report an intruder in their home. She is told to lock all windows and doors, but later she is found dead, with her husband suspected of her murder. The narrative then shifts to a request for assistance in finding Mr. Stewart, with a detective agreeing to help. The segment concludes with someone experiencing a nosebleed out of fear, prompting them to return home. The narrator describes a family's drive home, where they notice a sign for Exit 9. This seemingly insignificant detail unsettles them further. Upon arriving home, they find their son's nanny asleep. It is late, and Norma instructs her husband to drive the nanny home. During the ride, the nanny senses the husband's distress and asks about it, but he dismisses her concerns. However, as they talk, the nanny suddenly experiences dizziness and a nosebleed. In another account, the narrator describes an unsettling moment when Norma loses consciousness. Her husband checks her ID and discovers a different name, hinting at a hidden identity and possible conspiracy. When Norma regains consciousness, she is highly agitated and cryptically tells her husband that only a man visible in a mirror can save her. She then abruptly leaves. Troubled by this revelation, the husband returns home and shares the encounter with Norma. He reveals that the woman had used a false ID and behaved strangely. His thoughts turn to the man in the mirror, prompting him to rush to his storeroom and examine a picture. The narrative cuts off mid-sentence, leaving the reader in suspense about the picture's significance. The protagonist grows increasingly suspicious, recalling that he may have seen Mr. Stewart before, specifically in an old NASA facility in Alabama. Confused about Stewart's role in these events, the protagonist seeks help from someone close to Norma to locate him. However, another shocking discovery emerges. The protagonist encounters a woman whose husband was murdered 5.5 hours ago, the exact amount of time since Norma pressed the red button. The story ends abruptly, deepening the mystery. Another segment follows Norma's experience at a mall, where a frightened woman approaches her. The woman assures Norma that she should not worry, explaining that only couples with children are being tested. She hands Norma a piece of paper with a series of numbers for further investigation. Meanwhile, Norma's husband and her father arrive at a murder scene, further entangling them in the unfolding mystery. The narrator describes a crucial discovery in Norma's hospital room, a picture of Mr. Stewart. Upon picking it up, they find a number written underneath it, which is identified as belonging to a library bookshelf. This revelation suggests that Norma had visited the library, adding another layer of intrigue to the story. A script in English with improved clarity and flow. The narration shifts to a video showing Stewart. Norma watches the video and then, unexpectedly, decides to go upstairs. There she encounters Mr. Stewart. Upon seeing him, she asks what they want from her. A girl begins to explain something, but the explanation is abruptly cut off. Norma expresses her desire to leave, prompting Stuart's wife to lead her to a room containing 3 water portals. These portals are presented as possible escape routes. Norma recalls a boy at a party who repeatedly signaled the number 2 to her, which influences her decision to choose the second portal. The consequences of her choice are not immediately clear, but they involve a significant amount of water and result in her husband falling with her. The scene then shifts, introducing 2 new characters. Their identities and roles remain undisclosed. This segment focuses on a narrative involving a steward and 2 NASA officials. A shocking twist is revealed. The steward, previously presumed dead, officially declared deceased and placed in the morgue, was found alive by a nurse who heard him laughing. The scene then transitions to the steward's encounter with a large sum of money in a set of boxes, each capable of killing anyone who presses them. A confrontation follows, with someone questioning the steward's motives. He explains that he was merely conducting a test on humanity. Let me know if you'd like any further refinement. Here is your script in clear and fluent English. The narrator explains the rules of a game in which participants are tempted to press a button. If anyone presses the button, the game immediately ends. However, the narrator claims that humans are inherently greedy and inevitably fail the test by pressing the button, leading to their own demise. The scene then shifts to Norma and her companion at a formal gathering. Suddenly, Norma's husband's health deteriorates, forcing him to leave the party abruptly. Their son notices his father's sudden departure and follows him, with Norma quickly following behind. The narrator's final statement suggests a mysterious connection between the game and the death of his wife. The narrator then recounts a story involving a kidnapping. He explains that he never intended to kill anyone, but was forced to do so after his daughter was taken and his wife was murdered. Since that day, he claims, he has been under someone else's control. He describes how the kidnapper took his son to a hotel with a unique pool that serves as a portal, transporting people elsewhere. Meanwhile, the police are shown heading toward that very hotel. The narrator then mentions that the police brought someone to NASA headquarters where they reunited with their wife. Afterward, they were safely returned home in the same black car used to transport the kidnapped individuals. However, before the narrator can finish, the narration is abruptly cut off. Next, the narrator describes a dramatic scenario where a son is incapacitated in a bathroom. A man named Stuart is given a harrowing choice. He must either kill his wife, Norma, to ensure their son's recovery, or accept a payment of $1 million and live with his son's condition permanently. Unable to bear seeing his son suffer, Norma's husband ultimately makes the devastating decision to kill her. The narrative then shifts to an unrelated couple. The narrator reveals that Norma's body is completely restored, as if nothing had ever happened to her. In the post-credit scene, it is revealed that Stuart has not stopped playing the game. The final image of the film shows the ominous box being placed outside another family's house, leaving the cycle to continue. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments.